Okay, so today we're going to deep dive into some pretty interesting stuff
Oh, yeah.
from this YouTube channel. You know this one.
Which one?
It's called Divine Fusion 101 or something.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that one.
Yeah. So they've got these videos and,
What are we looking at today?
narcissism and twin flames.
Ooh, okay. Interesting combo.
Right.
Yeah.
Two very different things. But we'll see what these videos tell us about them.
Yeah, for sure.
Looking forward to it.
And maybe learn a little something about ourselves along the way, right?
Always. Always good.
So the first video, to be a narcissist, this one really kind of hit me,
Yeah.
It's making this distinction between, like, having narcissistic traits
Wow.
and actually being a narcissist.
Okay, yeah.
And I'd never really thought about that before, It's like,
I see what you mean.
there's a difference.
Yeah, there's definitely a spectrum, right?
Yeah. Like, we all have some of those traits.
Right.
To some degree.
Exactly.
But the video, it really emphasizes how trauma plays a role in both.
Okay.
Like, someone might develop those traits kind of as a shield
Yeah.
after going through something really tough, right?
Makes sense.
But with a true narcissist, their intention is different. It's all about protecting their ego.
So how does that, how do you see that playing out in real life?
How do you see that?
I'm trying to think, what's the difference between, someone who's just,
Right.
self-centered because of some past hurt
Right.
versus someone who's,
Whose narcissism is really ingrained.
Yeah, ingrained, exactly.
Yeah, think about it this way.
Yeah.
You're at a friend's birthday party,
Uh-huh.
and there's that one person.
Okay. Yeah.
They always have to be the center of attention, right?
Right.
They dominate every conversation.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Always bringing it back to themselves. Subtly putting others down.
Yeah.
It's not just about seeking attention.
Right.
It's about maintaining this sense of superiority
Yeah.
to protect that fragile ego.
It's like they need to feel better than everyone else.
Exactly.
To, validate themselves.
That's it. It's all about validation.
Okay.
External validation.
And that whole insecurity thing.
Yes.
That makes sense now.
Right. It all stems from that deep-seated insecurity.
Yeah.
They don't have a solid sense of self.
Right.
So they build it on what other people think.
Wow.
It's kind of sad when you think about it.
Yeah, it is, actually.
They might be achieving all these things.
Yeah.
But it's not really about the accomplishment.
Right.
It's about what those achievements bring them.
Praise.
The admiration.
Right.
The validation, exactly.
So their whole persona is kind of a facade.
In a way, yeah.
Like a crafted image.
It's a defense mechanism.
That's kind of scary,
This can be.
To think, how many people are like that?
Right, and how do we even spot it?
Yeah, I mean, we probably all know someone
Probably, yeah.
who's at least got some of these tendencies.
Throwing around the label narcissist,
Right.
it's a big deal.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But just being aware of these patterns,
Okay.
it helps us protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries.
Yes.
Not getting sucked into their game.
There's games, yeah.
And taking care of ourselves first and foremost.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Really good advice.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about, this darker side of the ego.
Yeah.
With narcissism.
Uh-huh.
But this next video, the twin flame experience,
Okay.
it's like the opposite,
Oh, interesting.
It's like finding wholeness through another person.
Yeah, I like that. Finding wholeness.
Right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful concept.
So twin flames, according to this video,
Huh.
it's like two halves of the same soul,
Wow.
split into two people.
Okay.
And it's super rare, apparently. Much rarer than, soulmates.
Yeah. Way rarer.
Interesting. So what makes it different?
It's like soulmates. It's more like shared interests, compatibility
Wait.
on flames. It's like a deep soul recognition, like you're coming home to yourself.
When you meet them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
And the video says it's essential for both people to grow spiritually.
So they help each other evolve.
Yeah. They act as mirrors.
Mirrors.
Yeah, showing each other their strength
Uh-huh.
and weaknesses.
Oh, I see. So they can see themselves more completely.
Yeah, fully authentically.
That's pretty deep.
Right. And there's this other thing about masculine and feminine energy.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one in the twin flame world.
So each twin flame has both, but in perfect balance.
So they're a complete unit on their own.
Yeah, but also drawn to their mirror image.
Fascinating.
Right. And the video says this balance, it's like an example for all of us.
You mean like a blueprint?
Yeah, like a blueprint for harmony
For ourselves.
and for our relationships.
That's a beautiful thought.
So we've gone from,
Yeah.
the dark side of narcissism to the inspiring potential of twin flames.
It's quite a range.
Right. But they both tell us something.
About being human.
Yeah, about the human experience.
Absolutely.
So narcissism helps us recognize those unhealthy patterns and protect ourselves.
Protect ourselves, yeah.
And twin flames, whether you believe in them or not, it gives us something to aim for.
A higher level of connection.
Exactly. Deeper, more authentic.
Yeah, I like it.
It makes you think, like, if twin flames represent this perfect balance.
That's a good question.
Can we learn from that?
Even without having a twin flame.
Like, can we cultivate that kind of harmony?
In our own lives.
In all our relationships.
That's a powerful thing to think about.
It is, right.
Yeah. It's like embracing both our masculine and feminine sides, finding that balance within.
Yeah.
And being true to ourselves.
And all our connections.
Exactly. That's the key.
Yeah, something to ponder for sure.
Definitely food for thought.
All right, well, that's our deep dive for today.
Thanks for having me.
It's been great. Thanks for coming on.
Anytime.
And for all of you listening, keep those questions coming.
Yeah, keep diving deep.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready. What are we exploring today?
Well, today we're gonna be taking a look at something pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got some source material on the topic of mind-altering substances.
Okay.
And this is not your typical drugs are bad type of content.
Right.
Yeah, this is coming from a different angle, a different perspective.
Interesting. Where is this coming from?
Well, this is a transcript that we've got from a YouTube video. The video is called Getting Higher, #Divine Fusion, #Dreek, Eurotag Healing.
Okay.
And it's posted on a channel called Divine Fusion 1011 SAC.
All right, so kind of a new age spiritual type of approach, it sounds like.
Exactly. And the video, it kind of flips the script. It's exploring these substances as, get this, potential tools for personal growth and healing.
Wow.
Yeah, not exactly what you think of when you think about, the typical drug awareness campaign.
Yeah, definitely different. That's pretty rare to hear that kind of perspective.
Yeah, so the video creator jumps right in, talks about these controversial perceptions.
Right.
And just acknowledges that there is this, clash that happens when you've got, kind of the societal norms, and then you've got these alternative uses like holistic healing.
So something that is maybe seen as negative in one context can be positive in a different context.
Exactly. It really makes you think.
It does.
Like, can these things that we maybe have been taught to think about a certain way, can they actually be catalysts for positive change?
Like, can they help us grow in ways that maybe we wouldn't have thought of before?
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of catalysts, the creator talks about this idea of the eternal cycle.
Okay.
What do you think that means in relation to personal growth? Could these substances somehow, like, mirror or influence that cycle?
That's a good question. It makes me think about the fact that personal growth, is not just a straight line. It's like this constant cycle of experiencing things, having challenges, and then kind of integrating what we've learned.
Yeah. Integrating it into our lives.
Yeah, and maybe these substances, in a way, can accelerate certain parts of that process.
Oh, interesting.
Like, they can change the way we see things, right? Yeah. And that might allow us to break free from those thought patterns that we get stuck in and see the world from a new perspective.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of like hitting fast forward on the growth cycle in a way.
Maybe, yeah.
But, the video also points out something really important. It says that it's really the individual's interpretation of the experience that shapes the impact.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah. Have you ever been through something difficult, but it was the way that you thought about it, the way that you framed it in your mind that actually helped you grow from it?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about what happens to us, but it's how we make sense of it, how we learn from it.
So true.
This video calls those substances, the mind-altering substances, catalysts for change.
Okay.
But not that they, cause the change directly, but that they kind of create the right conditions for it to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So they're not the answer.
Right.
But they can be a tool.
Yeah, like a tool in your toolbox.
Yeah, like that extra push to, finally confront a fear or shift your perspective on something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's this part in the video that really got me thinking. It talks about knowing oneself beyond the limits of one's own ego.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's pretty deep. So what does that actually mean in practical terms?
Yeah, that's a big question. Well, When we talk about the ego, it's like that voice in our head that's always, judging us,
Yeah.
comparing us to others.
Right, that inner critic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always trying to keep us small, to limit us.
Keep us in our comfort zone.
Yeah, and it's usually based on, our past experiences and all those beliefs that we've picked up about who we are and what we can do.
Mm.
But these substances, they can shake things up a bit, right? They can disrupt our normal thought patterns.
Yeah.
And that can allow us to maybe step outside of those limitations, and experience something bigger than ourselves.
So it's like quieting that inner critic.
Yes.
And seeing yourself without all those boundaries.
Exactly. Like, who are you beyond all of that?
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
But the creator is also really clear that choice is still important. They say one may indulge, one may learn and choose discipline.
Right.
So it's not about just letting go of all control, but about using these experiences to help you grow.
Yeah, like a springboard for something new.
Yeah, and that idea of choice, it's not just about substances.
Of course not.
It's in every part of life.
Yeah, I mean, we can choose to focus on negativity to get stuck in our problems.
Right.
Or we can choose to learn from them, to grow from them.
Yeah, and this idea of choice, it really ties into another point that the creator makes. They talk about getting high, is to raise one's own vibration.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's a great phrase. What do you think that could mean, metaphorically speaking?
Well, to me, it speaks to this idea of, reaching a higher level of awareness, maybe even of consciousness and of empathy, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about those times when you feel really connected to yourself and to the world around you.
Yeah.
It's like tapping into that potential, that energy.
So it's not just about the physical act of getting high, but about expanding your understanding of yourself and the world around you.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up, I think it's really, really important to say that we are absolutely not endorsing drug use.
Absolutely not. That's not what this is about.
What we're endorsing is the value of exploring different perspectives.
Yes.
Even those that might be controversial or that challenge the way we normally think.
This deep dive is all about learning, about expanding our understanding, and maybe questioning some of those assumptions that we've been holding on to.
Precisely. So today we dove into this really unique perspective on mind-altering substances.
And how they could be, tools for self-discovery, for personal growth, and not just about escaping reality.
And as we go about our day, I think it's a good question for all of us to ask ourselves. If these substances can act as catalysts for growth, what other catalysts might we be overlooking in our everyday lives?
Maybe it's that challenging project at work that we've been putting off.
Or a difficult conversation that we need to have.
Yeah. Sometimes those things that make us uncomfortable can actually be the things that help us evolve the most.
So true. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
We'll see you next time. Okay, so today we're going to take a deep dive into something I think a lot of us experience.
Yeah.
And, when we're on this path of personal growth,
Right.
We kind of start to notice some patterns in our lives. And
Absolutely. For sure.
we came across this video called Phase of Attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And it had some hashtags: alchemy healing,
Okay.
Dreek Zero,
Okay.
love future, and source healing.
Interesting.
And it was on this YouTube channel called Divine Fusion 101.
Getchy.
And
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting because
Okay.
it kind of proposed this idea that we form these attachments.
Right.
And these attachments actually have a deeper purpose
That's right.
in our own evolution.
The video really dives into this whole concept of,
Yeah.
different phases of attachment and how we tend to,
Right.
we cling to certain things or ideas as we're growing and evolving.
Right. And the more that we heal and become self-aware.
And more we recognize these patterns, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've been here before, haven't I?
Right. And it's those things that
Exactly.
we just keep finding ourselves drawn back to. And there was this one phrase in the video that really resonated with me and said, the reason for the attachment
Okay.
will be the lesson to understand.
I love that.
I thought that was really profound.
It's all about figuring out what each attachment is trying to teach us.
Right.
Yeah. Like, for instance, let's say someone, consistently finds themselves drawn to unhealthy relationships.
Yeah.
On the surface, it might look like just,
Bad luck.
bad luck or whatever. But if you look deeper, maybe the lesson there is about learning to set boundaries.
Right.
Or recognizing their own self-worth.
Right. It's not about judging the attachment itself,
Exactly.
but trying to figure out
It's like, what is this attachment trying to show me?
Yeah, like what is the message behind it?
Absolutely.
Because for me, I can think back to a time, when I was younger.
Uh-huh.
Um, I was very attached to
Okay.
always having the answer,
Oh,
always needing to be right.
interesting.
And
Yeah.
looking back, I can see how the lesson there was about
Yeah.
learning to be more open-minded
Right.
and embracing uncertainty,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, that's such a great example
Yeah.
because, the video really emphasizes
Yeah.
how these reasons for attachments are very personal.
Right.
What might be a significant attachment for one person
Yeah.
could be totally different for somebody else.
Completely different.
So it's really important to not
Yes.
compare our
Yeah.
journeys.
Don't compare.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to do,
Oh, it's so easy.
especially with, social media and
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
everybody's
It's a highlight reel.
highlight reel. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how can we, recognize the uniqueness
Right.
of our attachments and use that to
Yeah.
help us not compare?
That's such a good question because,
Yeah.
comparison can be such a huge obstacle
It is.
to growth.
Yeah.
But I think when you really grasp
Yeah.
that your attachments and the lessons they hold,
Yeah.
they're specific to your journey,
Yeah.
it becomes easier to kind of turn inward
Right.
and focus on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a competition,
Right.
and somebody else's phase
Right.
doesn't invalidate your own.
Right.
It's like we each have
Yeah.
our own unique puzzle to solve.
Yeah. And
You know,
it's a great analogy. Observing other people might give you some hints,
yeah.
but ultimately it's about focusing on your own pieces.
Yeah.
Right.
The video also mentions
Yeah.
source healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that might be a new concept
Right.
for some of our listeners.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you talk a little bit about what source healing is?
Yeah. So source healing is really about
Yeah.
connecting with your inner self.
Okay.
Like your intuition or
Yeah.
whatever you consider to be your source of wisdom, of healing.
Okay.
It's about looking within for those answers rather than relying solely on external sources.
Right.
Yeah.
And this ties into this idea that our deeply rooted attachments
Yeah.
have this clear purpose, right?
Absolutely.
The video actually says that
Okay.
the most deeply rooted attachments will hold the most obvious purpose over our lives once understood.
I love that because it's like
Yeah.
it's like those aha moments,
Well, yeah.
when everything clicks into place.
It's like a light bulb.
Yeah, and you can see how, a past attachment, even if it was painful,
Yeah.
played a role in shaping who you are today. And
Right.
that realization
Right.
can be so empowering,
It is.
because it gives you a sense of purpose.
Right.
That doesn't need external validation.
Yeah.
It's your own internal compass guiding you.
Right.
Yeah.
So to wrap up,
Yeah.
what are the key takeaways?
Okay, so the key takeaways.
Yeah.
First, remember attachments aren't accidental. They
Oh.
serve a purpose in our growth.
Right.
Second, understanding the reason behind each attachment is key to unlocking its lesson.
Right.
And finally, comparing your journey to others
Yeah.
is counterproductive.
Yeah. It can hinder our understanding
That-
of our own unique path.
They can really throw you off track.
Totally.
Yeah.
So as you go about your day,
Yeah.
I want you to consider this.
Okay.
If attachments reveal a deeper purpose,
Okay.
what might your current attachment
Right.
be trying to teach you?
Ooh, that's good.
Maybe it's an attachment to
Yeah.
a certain career path,
Uh-huh.
a relationship dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
or even a way of thinking.
Absolutely.
Pay attention to those recurring patterns
Yes.
and see if you can uncover
Yeah.
the hidden wisdom that they hold.
I love it. All right.
Great deep dive.
That's it for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We'll see you the next one.
Awesome. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm excited for this one. Today, we're going deep, and I mean deep, into spirituality.
Always a fascinating topic.
Yeah. It's one of those things, it's so personal, yet it's something everyone seems to grapple with. And, we've got these two excerpts for this deep dive,
Yeah.
and they both kind of focus on this idea of spirituality as like an inner journey, which is, not always how people think of it.
Right. Yeah. It's often seen as something, outside of ourselves. Like we need to go find it, whether that's through religion or gurus or, some kind of, I don't know, ritual or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like you need something external to validate it or, I don't know,
Yeah.
to even access it.
Yeah, exactly.
But one of these excerpts actually says, straight up, spirituality is not born outside of oneself. It's all about like this inward journey of self-discovery.
That's a powerful statement.
It is. It really is. But, it's easy to say look inward, but what does that even look like in practice? How do we actually do that?
Well, the excerpt gives us a clue. It says, the realization is always the awareness of now by means of one's intentions.
Okay. So intention is key here.
It seems to be, because if you're not aware of the present moment, if you're constantly caught up in the past or worried about the future, then you're missing out on like the richness of right now. And that's where true self-awareness, has to begin.
Hmm. So being present and mindful is definitely part of it. But it's not just about being present, right? The excerpt also talks about going deeper than what one already knows and even diving deeper past one's ego. What do they even mean by that?
It's almost like peeling back the layers of an onion, right? The ego in this context is that part of us that wants to protect itself. It seeks external validation, wants to maintain a certain image, all that.
It wants to keep us comfortable.
Exactly. So to go deeper past the ego means you have to be willing to confront some uncomfortable truths about yourself, to really question your assumptions and to let go of beliefs that might be holding you back. It's about radical honesty with yourself.
I remember when I first tried meditating, like to get in touch with that inner self. Ugh, my mind just wouldn't shut up. It was like a monkey swinging from thought to thought. It was maddening.
Oh, yeah, I know that feeling. Meditation is a practice, though, right? It's like any skill, it takes time and patience to develop.
So any tips for beginners, for people who, I don't know, just have that super chatty monkey mind?
Well, one thing that I found really helpful is focusing on the breath. Just notice the sensation of each inhale and each exhale. And when your mind wanders, and it will wander, just gently guide it back to the breath.
Okay, so we're cultivating self-awareness. We're trying to push past our egos, and we're trying to be intentional. But there's this other element that this excerpt mentions. Sacrifice. What role does sacrifice play in this whole journey of self-discovery?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Because sacrifice here, I don't think it means like deprivation or punishment. It's more about recognizing that sometimes, to embrace a new truth or a deeper understanding of ourselves, we might have to let go of some things that are no longer serving us.
Right. Like what kinds of things?
Well, it could be a limiting belief. It could be a harmful habit. It could even be a relationship that's holding you back. Things that we cling to that are actually preventing us from growing.
Yeah, like you've got to clear out the clutter to make space for something new, for something, I don't know, more authentic.
Exactly. And, that idea of personal commitment to uncover deeper truths, that's something that the second excerpt really hits on.
Oh, right. I was going to say, we've been spending a lot of time on the first one. How does the second one connect to all this?
Well, it really highlights the fact that spirituality isn't some passive thing you just, stumble into. It takes effort, it takes intention, and it takes a willingness to challenge yourself, to really dig deep.
So we're not just like waiting for enlightenment to strike us on the head.
Nope. We have to be active participants in the process.
It's almost like, we're detectives trying to piece together clues about ourselves and ultimately to uncover our own unique spiritual identity.
Exactly. It's not about following some predetermined path, but forging your own way based on your values and your experiences. And that's what makes it so powerful, right?
Right, because it's yours. So all this talk about looking inward and this inner journey, it's great in theory. But for our listeners who are thinking, okay, how do I actually start doing this? What are some practical things they can do? Where do they even begin?
One of the most powerful things you can do is just ask yourself some simple yet profound questions. Like, what really matters to me? What are my core values? What brings me joy? What makes me feel truly alive?
Yeah. And how do you figure that out?
Well, journaling can be really helpful for self-reflection and spending time in nature, maybe engaging in some creative pursuits, even just having honest conversations with people you trust. All these things can provide insights into who you really are at your core.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds like this deep dive into spirituality, it's really an invitation to a lifelong journey of self-discovery.
It really is.
And it starts with that first step, right? Of looking within, of asking those questions and being open to the answers that emerge. Well, this has been really thought-provoking. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration.
My pleasure. It's always great to delve into these topics.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all of you listening out there, I hope this deep dive has given you some things to ponder, some new ways to think about your own spiritual journey. And remember, the journey starts within. It's crazy to think, right? We can find the answer to almost anything
Yeah.
just by Googling it.
I know.
Like, how cool is that? But
Right.
then it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's kind of overwhelming sometimes, too.
It is.
Isn't it? It's just like a fire hose of information.
Totally.
And today we're going to look at some of your sources
Okay.
that talk about this idea of information overload
Okay.
and how it can maybe even be holding us back
Interesting.
from real growth inside.
Yeah. You know what's really interesting is this excerpt you shared.
Yeah.
It talks about being like oversaturated
Yeah.
with irrelevant facts and concepts, which I think is something we can all relate to these days.
Totally.
And it kind of reminds me of this idea in cognitive psychology
Okay.
that our brains, they just have limited processing power.
Right.
So when we're constantly bombarded with information from like,
Yeah.
our phones and our computers and the news,
Everywhere.
it's like we're trying to fill up a teacup with a fire hose. Most of it just spills over.
It's true. And, sometimes I catch myself
Yeah.
like doom scrolling for hours.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm like, wait a minute, what did I even read?
Okay.
I just feel like
Yeah.
kind of mentally exhausted,
Totally.
but like not really any smarter.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny because
Yeah.
the source actually mentions this too. It
Right.
says,
What does it say?
technological advancement does not always equal evolution,
Well,
which I think is,
that's deep.
it is deep. It's a really profound statement
Yeah.
because it makes you think, okay, well,
Yeah.
if just knowing more stuff
Right.
doesn't necessarily make us better or like more evolved as people,
Right.
then what does?
Yeah. What does make us more evolved then?
Well, the source seems to be pointing towards
Okay.
internal change
Yeah.
as the real like marker of evolution.
Interesting.
So it's not just about
Yeah.
accumulating all this knowledge and these facts and figures, but it's about how we process that information,
Okay.
how we integrate it into our understanding of ourselves
Right.
and the world.
So it's like taking the knowledge
Yes.
and applying it to ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah, like think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like we chase all these external things like
Oh, yeah.
status or possessions or even
Right.
knowledge itself.
Knowledge just for the sake of knowledge.
Exactly. It can become like this
Yeah.
pursuit that's driven by ego.
Yeah.
But if we don't have that internal reflection,
Okay.
if we don't understand like why we're craving these things,
Yeah.
it can lead to this feeling of emptiness. Like
Yeah.
we can end up with this huge library of facts,
Yeah.
but no real wisdom
Wow.
to guide our actions.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
Like having all these books,
Right.
but no one to actually read them.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the point of having all that knowledge
Right.
if you're not going to use it
Exactly.
or even understand it?
Well, it's like, are we just collecting data points?
Yeah.
Or are we actually learning and growing as people?
Right. And the source even mentions like this idea of pain
Yes,
before personal growth.
it does.
What does it say?
It says, one may experience much pain
Wow.
before choosing a new life for oneself.
So is discomfort
Yeah.
like a necessary part of this
I think so.
internal evolution?
I think absolutely.
Okay.
Because think about it.
Yeah.
Choosing a new life, like the source says,
Right.
it requires us to break free from our comfortable patterns,
Right.
comfortable beliefs, even if they're outdated.
Yeah.
So it's about confronting those parts of ourselves
Right.
that we might rather avoid.
Okay.
Our biases, our fears, our limiting beliefs.
Mixture.
And that process can be
Yeah.
uncomfortable, can even be painful.
Right.
But I really do think it's through those challenges
Yeah.
that we gain the most profound insights
Okay.
and experience real transformation.
It's like that saying,
Yeah.
growth happens outside of your comfort zone.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And this all kind of ties back to what you were saying earlier
Yeah.
about being active participants
Yes.
in shaping our own growth
Yes.
rather than
Yeah.
just like passively
Yeah.
consuming information.
We can't just be sponges
Right.
soaking it all up.
Right.
We have to do something with it.
Yeah, we have to apply it.
Exactly.
So we have this power to choose.
Yes, we do.
Right. What we focus on.
Yes.
What we learn.
Yes.
Who we become.
Absolutely.
And technology can play a role in that.
It can.
Right.
It can be a tool for this internal evolution
All right.
if we use it mindfully.
So instead of just,
Yes.
getting lost in all the noise,
Exactly.
we can be more intentional.
Yes. Curate our digital diets.
I like that.
Right. Seek out information that actually aligns with our values
Yes.
and our goals.
I love that idea.
And, another thing we can do with technology is connect with other people
Okay.
who share those same interests.
Right.
Foster a sense of community
Yeah.
and shared growth.
community is so important
It is.
for growth.
It is.
So it's like we're shifting from being just like a data sponge
Yeah.
to becoming like a sculptor,
Yes.
right? Carefully shaping our own
That's exactly.
internal landscape.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And it's not just about individual growth either, right?
Right.
Because the source
Yeah.
leaves us with this thought about
Yes.
creating peace in the world.
It does.
So how does all of this internal work,
Yeah.
this focus on personal transformation,
Right.
how does that impact the outside world?
Well, I think if knowledge is power,
Okay.
then self-awareness is the key
Okay.
to wielding that power responsibly.
I like that.
So as we cultivate a deeper understanding of ourselves,
Yeah.
we develop greater empathy and compassion for others.
Okay.
We start to see the interconnectedness of all things.
Right.
And we recognize that our actions, no matter how small,
Right.
have a ripple effect on the world around us.
It's like the butterfly effect.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So as we're navigating
Yes.
this world of just constant information.
Information overload.
Right. Maybe the real question isn't just like, what do I know?
Right.
But how am I growing?
Yes.
And how is that growth contributing to a better world?
That's the question right there.
That's what I think listeners should really be asking themselves.
Absolutely.
And, in the end,
Yeah.
it's not about rejecting information or technology.
Yeah.
It's about using them consciously
Yes.
to fuel our own internal evolution
Exactly.
and maybe even create a more peaceful world.
Starting from within.
Starting from within.
Yeah.
That's something to think about.
It is.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back for another deep dive.
Glad to be back.
You know how we do things here.
You sure do.
We're diving into some fascinating concepts.
Yeah, I had to really think about these sources before coming on today.
That's what we love.
That's what makes it fun, right?
Exactly. That's what makes it a deep dive,
Absolutely.
This time, we're looking at how our thoughts and emotions connect to this idea of the eternal cycle.
Yeah, it's getting pretty philosophical,
And the source material.
Yeah.
It's abstract, to say the least.
Definitely abstract.
But that's why we're here, right? To break it down,
Absolutely, yeah.
our first quote, it kind of throws you right in. Before one vibrates beyond one's own choice of survival, most thoughts are one's interpretation of one's emotions. What do you make of that when you first read it?
I'll be honest, I had to read it a few times. But it's so interesting, right? Like, it really makes you think about the connection between, well, everything.
Like, are we really thinking if we're just reacting to our feelings?
Right. And it made me think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Oh, interesting connection there.
Yeah, like, until we've got those basic survival needs taken care of, food, shelter, safety, are we really able to think beyond just reacting to our immediate emotions?
You're just in survival mode.
Exactly. And this quote seems to be suggesting that's when our thoughts are basically just interpretations of how we're feeling.
Makes you wonder how much of our thinking is truly objective then, huh?
Right.
All right, so this next line for the source, it gets even deeper. All emotions are always one's interpretation of one's own root. What's this root all about, do you think?
It's a powerful image, right? It's like what's at the core of us, what grounds us.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, like the root of a tree, It's hidden, but it's what holds everything up.
Exactly, and it feeds the tree, gives it what it needs to grow. So maybe this root is our values, our beliefs, even those deep-seated fears and desires we might not always be aware of.
It shapes how we see the world?
I think so, yeah. Like, if you really believe in fairness and someone treats you unfairly, your anger is going to be a lot stronger than if you weren't so attached to that value.
Makes sense.
Mm.
So understanding this root could be the key to managing our emotions better.
I think that's a big part of it. It's like if you're angry, but you understand that it's coming from this deep-seated need for fairness, you can start to process it differently.
Instead of just exploding or something.
Yeah, exactly. You can maybe address the unfairness more constructively rather than just reacting from that raw emotion.
That's actually really helpful.
Glad to hear it.
Okay, ready for this next one? It's pretty wild. The source claims that emotions explain the existence of oneself. Like, whoa.
Oh, whoa is right. It's like our capacity for emotion is what makes us us. It's what separates us from, I don't know, robots or something.
Makes you think about artificial intelligence, right? Like, can AI ever truly replicate human emotion?
Yeah, exactly. And if it can't, what does that mean for the concept of consciousness?
Big question.
Definitely. But even on a personal level, think about how our emotions shape our individual experiences. Like, going through a really tough time, it's painful, right? But it can also lead to incredible growth, make you appreciate the good times even more.
It's like without the lows, you wouldn't know the highs.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It's the contrast, the whole spectrum of experience that makes life so, well, alive.
So emotions are kind of the key to our whole human experience.
In a lot of ways, I think so.
That leads us to this idea of the eternal cycle that
Uh,
the source keeps mentioning.
Yeah, this one's definitely open to interpretation, but I think it ties back to that idea of vibrating beyond survival. When we understand our emotions, where they come from, we can move beyond just reacting to everything around us.
You can see the bigger picture.
Yeah, like those repeating patterns throughout history, the rise and fall of civilizations, even the cycles in our own lives. We go through periods of growth, then challenges, then more growth.
So by knowing ourselves better, we understand the world better.
Exactly. It's like the source says only by way of understanding one's own emotions will one know of the eternal cycle. It's about introspection, looking inward to understand the outer world.
Makes you wonder what we're missing out on if we don't take the time to understand ourselves.
I think that's a really good point. It's like we're all part of this grand interconnected system, but if we're not aware of our own internal workings, how can we fully grasp our role in it all?
So to wrap this up, it sounds like what we're saying is our emotions come from this root, this core part of who we are. And if we can understand that connection, it not only helps us manage our emotions better, but it also opens us up to a whole new understanding of the world, this eternal cycle we're all a part of.
Yeah, and it's a journey, right? We're constantly learning, growing, changing. And our understanding of our emotions, it'll change right along with us.
Exactly. It's about asking the questions, why do I feel this way? What's at the root of it? And being open to whatever answers come up.
And maybe those answers will lead us to a deeper understanding of, well, everything.
Maybe they will. So here's something to think about as we sign off today. What's one emotion you felt strongly recently, and what do you think might be at its root? Spend some time with that question, see where it takes you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time,
See ya.
take care.
Bye. All right, so welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today we are looking at something I think pretty fascinating,
Okay.
which is this perspective on sickle cell disease, or SCD,
Mm-hmm.
that I found in some of the research that I was doing. And it kind of goes beyond just like the straight biological facts.
Okay.
And it gets into some metaphors, to
Right.
try to understand it in a different way.
Interesting.
So I'm excited to kind of like unpack this with you today and see what you think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, first of all, like, big disclaimer.
Right.
This is just like one person's perspective.
Right.
This is not medical advice. If you have any health concerns, definitely like talk to a doctor.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is really more about like broadening perspectives, not like
Right.
replacing any kind of professional guidance.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So with that out of the way, let's kind of dive in. So to start, sickle cell disease, it's a genetic disorder, and it affects the red blood cells. So normally your red blood cells, they should be nice and round,
Yeah.
which helps them move smoothly through your blood vessels.
Right.
But with SCD, these cells, they actually become like sickle-shaped,
Oh, okay.
like, like the tool, like a crescent.
Okay. Yeah.
And because of that shape, they can get stuck.
That makes
They can
sense.
block the blood flow. And that can cause a lot of pain and other complications.
Wow.
So that's like the basic biological kind of like textbook explanation.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
But where this source got really interesting for me was when it started talking about these metaphors.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So it starts off by like equating blood to emotion
We'll do emotion.
and like oxygen and breathing to thoughts, like your thinking processes.
Okay.
And then it brings in the sickle cell, right?
Right.
That shape.
Yeah.
And it's saying it's like a tool for cutting or harvesting.
Okay, so how does that all tie together then?
Yeah. So the idea is like if your emotions are stuck, right? They're not flowing freely. Kind of like how the sickle cells get stuck in the blood vessels.
Right.
Then your thoughts, your breathing, it can't flow freely either. And that can cause like damage, just like the blockages cause damage in the body.
Interesting.
What do you think so far? I mean, it's definitely like a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, it's pretty out there, but I kind of see where they're going with it.
Right.
Like,
Right.
we all know that, like, stress and emotional stuff can impact our physical health.
Exactly. Exactly.
But this is taking it a step further,
it's
saying
not
it's not just, like, impacting our health in general, but that it's actually, like, tied to this specific disease.
Yes. And not just impacting, but like maybe even like causing it or contributing to it, Which, again,
Yeah.
big disclaimer, this is not like scientifically proven or anything like that.
Right.
But it's definitely like a thought-provoking idea, I think.
No, absolutely. It makes you think.
Right. And it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
like, how much does our emotional state, like, really affect us on a physical level?
Exactly. And like how much of that is passed down,
Yes.
like generation to generation.
That was another big part of this perspective.
Okay.
So they were talking about, like, generational healing,
Oh, interesting.
And they were saying that SCD, particularly within, like, Black families,
Uh-huh.
it can be seen as an opportunity to heal not just the physical body,
Right.
but also, like, these inherited emotional patterns
Wow.
that have been passed down, maybe, like, through generations of trauma or,
Ancestral trauma.
Yes, exactly.
That's a powerful concept.
It is, right. And it kind of brings in this whole other layer to the conversation.
Yeah, it's like it's not just about the individual anymore. It's about like their whole family history
I get
and
that.
how that might be playing a role.
Yeah, and I mean, there's actually, like, some scientific basis to this idea.
Really?
Yeah, like, have you heard of epigenetics?
Vaguely. Remind me.
So it's basically the study of how, like, your environment and your experiences
Mm-hmm.
can actually change the way your genes work.
So like even though your genes themselves don't change,
Right.
the way they're expressed can be different.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow. So that could be a link then.
Right. So, like, maybe trauma
Mm-hmm.
or stress experienced by, like, your ancestors could actually affect how your genes are expressed today.
That's wild.
Right. It's pretty mind-blowing stuff.
It is.
So, I mean, obviously, like, more research needs to be done.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But it's definitely, like, an interesting avenue to explore,
For sure.
in terms of understanding how these things might be connected.
Absolutely.
So then the source kind of takes it even a step further.
Okay. How so?
And it talks about how people with SCD might actually have, like,
Yeah.
a unique capacity for healing.
Healing.
Yeah, like, they're suggesting that because they're dealing with this, like, very specific challenge.
Right.
That it gives them this, like, opportunity to not just heal themselves, but to actually, like, heal their whole lineage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty bold claim.
It is a bold.
I'm not sure I, like, fully buy into it,
Yeah.
to be honest. But I do think it's, like, a really empowering idea.
I can see that.
Right, like, regardless of whether you have SCD or not, we all
Yeah.
have this, like, inner strength, this resilience, this ability to, like, heal and grow.
Right.
And, maybe by facing our challenges head on and working through them, we can not only, like, improve our own lives,
Yeah.
but maybe even, like, have a positive impact on the people around us.
Totally. And maybe even future generations.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
like that whole butterfly effect thing.
Yeah. Like, who knows how far those ripples can go, right?
Right.
So, I mean, this deep dive has been, it's been a lot, right?
It has been a lot.
We've gone from the biological facts of SCD
Yeah.
to these, like, really kind of out there metaphors
Definitely.
and this idea of, like, generational healing and ancestral trauma.
And the power of individual healing.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Mm.
So it's a lot to process.
Yeah. Food for thought, for sure.
Right. But I think, like, the main takeaway for me is that there might be more to this disease than we realize,
Right.
Like, it might be connected to these deeper emotional and even spiritual levels.
Yeah. It's like, it's not just a physical thing.
Exactly.
It's connected to so much more.
Right. And, I mean, obviously this is just one perspective,
Of course. Yeah.
but it's perspective that I think is worth considering,
I agree.
So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, it's like that saying the personal is political. Or in this case, maybe the personal is biological.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's good. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good place to leave it for today. Like,
Yeah.
if this topic resonated with you, I would definitely encourage you to, like,
Yeah.
do some more research,
Thanks so
There's
much.
a lot of information out there about SCD,
Yeah.
about generational healing, about epigenetics.
Right.
So, keep learning, keep exploring. And as always, if you have any health concerns, make sure to talk to a qualified healthcare professional.
Definitely.
All right, well, until next time, happy deep diving, everyone. Have you ever felt like you were carrying something heavier? Like more than just your own experiences.
Oh, yeah.
Like echoes of the past are shaping your present.
Yeah.
Today, we're diving into a powerful metaphor
Okay.
that explores this very idea,
Okay.
the possible link between sickle cell disease and inherited emotional trauma.
Interesting.
We'll be looking at excerpts from a text that unpacks this connection.
Right.
Now, you probably know the basics of sickle cell.
Uh-huh.
Red blood cells distort into this sickle shape,
Yeah.
leading to all sorts of complications.
Mm-hmm.
But what if this physical condition is also reflecting something deeper?
Okay.
A legacy of emotional wounds passed down through generations.
I see.
What are your thoughts about this idea?
Well, what's striking about this concept is that it goes beyond the purely medical.
Okay.
It asks us to consider blood as more than just a biological fluid,
Right.
but as a carrier of emotions, a thread connecting us to our ancestors' experiences.
Okay, so let me get this straight. We're saying that just as sickle cell is passed down genetically,
Yeah.
unresolved emotions could be flowing through families too.
Exactly.
Wow.
And think about the symbolism here.
Okay.
If healthy blood flow represents clear thinking,
Uh,
then those sickle cells struggling to carry oxygen
yeah.
could symbolize the way inherited trauma clouds are judgment,
Right.
mental clarity. It's like
Yeah.
emotional baggage blocking the free flow of thought.
That's a pretty potent image.
Right.
And then there's the sickle shape itself. It's sharp.
Mhm.
It's associated with pain,
Yeah,
even danger.
exactly.
What do you think about that?
Right. It perfectly embodies the destructive potential of inherited trauma,
Ah,
the way it disrupts,
right.
cuts into lives. It's a powerful visual reminder of how unresolved emotions can have these ripple effects
wow.
across generations.
This makes me think about families where certain patterns keep repeating.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Addictions,
Yes.
anxiety, even ways of reacting to stress.
Mm-hmm.
Could this be what we're talking about here?
It's certainly a possibility.
Ah.
And this is where the text gets really interesting.
Hmm.
It suggests that individuals with sickle cell disease may actually be the key to breaking these cycles.
Hold on. How does that work?
Well, by confronting and healing their own emotional wounds,
Okay.
by acknowledging the trauma they carry,
Hmm.
they could be paving the way for a healthier emotional inheritance for future generations.
Okay.
It's a powerful idea, individuals acting as agents of change, not just for themselves, but for their entire lineage.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah,
But also incredibly hopeful.
it is.
It makes you wonder how many of us are walking around with this kind of inherited burden, unaware of its impact on our lives.
That's a great point.
What do you think about that?
And this is especially relevant when we consider the historical context of the Black community.
Okay.
Generations have faced unimaginable trauma, from slavery to ongoing systemic racism.
Mm-hmm.
It's crucial to acknowledge this collective experience, not to dwell in the pain, but to understand how it might be shaping present realities.
So we're not just talking about individual healing here,
Right.
but the potential for collective healing,
Yes.
for entire communities to address these deep-seated wounds.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the beauty of the sickle cell metaphor
Yeah.
is that it offers a tangible starting point.
Okay.
It encourages us to look at our own families,
Huh.
our own histories,
Yeah.
and ask, what might we be carrying?
Wow.
What can we heal, not just for ourselves, but for the generations to come?
That's a powerful thought to leave us with.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that healing isn't just a personal journey. It's also a legacy we can choose to leave behind.
It really is.
It's a lot to unpack, but I think this gives us all a new lens
Yeah.
through which to view our own lives and the experiences of those around us.
Absolutely.
And I hope this deep dive has inspired you to consider how inherited emotional trauma might be playing a role in your own life and in the lives of your family members.
Yeah.
That's a great takeaway.
And to think about what steps you might take to heal these wounds, not only for yourself, but for generations to come.
Absolutely.
It's a complex and challenging topic, but it's one that's worth exploring.
For sure.
And I encourage you to continue learning and thinking about this important issue.
Thanks for bringing this up. I think that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Okay.
But I hope you'll join us again next time for another fascinating exploration of the connections between mind, body, and spirit.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
And until next time, keep diving deep.
All right. Bye.